The Scarlet Hawks would play out their final game before the holidays in their home gym. Milford hoped to even up their early season record at 2-2, but to do that they would need to find a way to slow down the high-octane offense of the Taunton Tigers. Teams have struggled to keep up with Taunton's speed through the early games of the season, and early on Lou Vendrell would give the Hawks an up-close view at that speed as he gets his hands on the defensive rebound and flies the length of the floor, splitting a pair of defenders before laying it in for the game's first points. Moments later, the Hawks would come up with the response, delivering a pass out to Joey Everett, who would convert the three to push the early lead into Milford's favor. Later in the first, with Taunton up by a point, Milford would generate the turnover under the basket, and good passing ahead would find Brendan White all alone, and he would grab the bucket to push his team back in front. Overall, both sides would struggle with a lack of execution offensively over the first 8 minutes, leading to a slim 9-5 lead for the Scarlet Hawks heading into the second quarter. The scoreboard would remain frozen for nearly 3 minutes to open that second quarter, before finally Steve Sutherland would put one in from underneath the basket to increase Milford's lead. But that lead would not last long, as Taunton's speed and active hands would lead to a flurry of turnovers as the second quarter went on. Here it's Malik Charles who disrupts the pass, leading to a bucket by Naz Kenyon to tie the game at 11. Then with the score tied at 13, we see another steal at half court, which would be capped off by the dunk courtesy of the sophomore phenom Dante Law to put his team up by 2. Taunton would outscore Milford 15-8 in the second quarter, which would allow them to carry a 20-17 lead into the break. After Law capped off the Taunton scoring in the first half, he'd come out hot in the third quarter, this time showing off his outside shooting game to put the Tigers up by 6. With the Taunton lead up to 8, Shane Cosquette would try and inject a little life into the Milford offense. He makes a nifty move around Dante Law before finishing at the rim to chip into the Tigers' lead. As the Hawks would look to continue the comeback effort, they would once again deal with issues at the free throw line. Milford would miss 6 out of their first 7 free throw attempts on the night. Taunton would capitalize on those shooting woes as Vendrell drills the jumper here. Then after the Tigers forced another Milford turnover, they would eventually get the tip in courtesy of their senior captain Lenz Esquivel to establish an 11-point advantage with less than 3 minutes to go in the third. Milford would get some good contributions off their bench to close out the quarter. Steve Sutherland would lead the effort, chipping in 6 points in the period. Milford would cut the deficit to 5 before Naz Kenyon would grab a layup in the closing seconds to make it 37-30 in favor of Taunton heading into the fourth quarter. Watch this passing by the Tigers in the opening minute of the fourth. They'd get it into the hands of Law, and the sophomore would push the Taunton lead to 9 points. Meanwhile, Milford's offense would really struggle to get anything going early on in the fourth. They'd score just a single point over the first 3 minutes, allowing Taunton to build up a 12-point lead with just 5 minutes to go in the game. Just when it felt like the game was slipping out of Milford's reach, it was Steve Sutherland who would once again step to the forefront. He gets his hands on the deflected pass from White and nails the 3 to breathe a little life into the Scarlet Hawks. After the bench kept Milford within striking distance, the Hawks' best scorer on the young season, Brendan White, would start to heat up in the closing minutes. With his team down by 9, White is able to connect on his first three-pointer of the night to make it a 2-possession game. As the game clock went under a minute, White would have another chance from long range, and he would come through to make it a 46-42 score with 54.8 seconds left. Moments later, White would step to the free throw line, and he would convert both attempts. White would notch 10 points in the fourth quarter, and the once 12-point Taunton lead would be cut down to just 2. Despite the furious Milford comeback, Taunton would still hold a 2-point lead down to 15 seconds to play, and the Tigers would end up with Lou Vendrell at the free throw line, hoping the junior could give his team a little breathing room.
And off the back of the rim, Joey Everett picks it up. 10 seconds left. Cosquette up the floor, takes it to the basket, and gets it to bounce through to tie the game at 48 with 3.7 seconds left. Milford comes all the way back to tie it as timeout is called.
The Tigers could not come through with a shot at the buzzer, and so the teams would head to overtime with the score knotted at 48 all. Both teams would give maximum effort as that overtime period played out. Here, Brendan White sells out to try to make the steal, but he would end up getting whistled for his final foul of the night. Taunton would miss both of the ensuing free throws, however, keeping the score unchanged with 1 minute and 45 seconds left. After the free throw misses, the Scarlet Hawks would look for someone to step up and make a key shot. They would get it from the most unlikely of sources, as Cam Falcon, subbing in for White, would be left all alone beyond the arc, and the junior would produce the first bucket in overtime to give Milford a 3-point lead. But Taunton would push back. A bucket from the sophomore Law and 2 makes at the line by the freshman Diamond Blakely would tip the lead back into the Tigers' favor at 52-51. Most of the scoring in the final seconds of OT would play out at the free throw line. After Milford went 1 for 6 from the line through the first 3 quarters, the Hawks would drill 7 of 10 in the fourth quarter and overtime, with this free throw shot from the senior captain Joey DeMarco giving Milford a 2-point lead in the closing seconds. Taunton would have one final chance to tie the game, but they would fail to get a shot off as the overtime buzzer sounded. In the end, the Scarlet Hawks would produce a most improbable comeback victory. They would earn their first win over Taunton in school history, taking the game in overtime by a final score of 56-54.